Hey guys, it's Katie. So I know it's been a long time. I just kind of, one, I've been painting, and two, I just haven't had any mojo to do any kind of art. Not that I've been doing stuff and just haven't recorded it. I haven't really been doing any, other than oil painting, really any crafting. I've just kind of been chilling. It's midwinter. We got like another foot of snow out there. It's gray. It's cold. I mean, it's been in the under 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's just my drive to do anything on the weekends is gone. So I'm going to start out with something simple just to try to get my creativity flowing again. Simple makumegane. That's what I tend to go to when I'm trying to just get myself back in the role of doing something. So I have, two scrap colors. This is like a gray blue color, but I'm going to lighten it with a little white. I might not even use all of it. I'm not going to make a huge batch of this, just a little batch. So I'll probably make a pale blue, gray like that. I have a chocolate brown scrap that I'll add some white to make a pale brown. I have some ecru, which again, I probably don't need that much. Yes, there's a little blue smear on there from my blade. That's okay. Again, I like the ecru paled a little bit, and then I have some plain white. So I'm going to mix these up and just make a sheet of each. I'm not going to make a huge block of makumegane, just a little bit. So I'll get these all conditioned and mixed up, and I'll be right back. You know, and I figured I'd show you just in case, because I know I have a lot of new beginners, and I'm not catering to people who are experienced polymer clay. I'm catering to beginners. That's why I show every single step. So when I chop a chunk off the block, this is what I had, a 1 pound block, and this is pretty much all primo here. And it's pretty stiff. So first I'll start off just by squishing it down a little bit just to get it easier to fit through your pasta machine. Now my Atlas 150 Wellness does have a motor on it now, but I didn't have one for a very long time. So you don't need a motor. I was just gifted one, okay? So that's why I have one. So pretty much I'll just kind of squish all of this white down so I can make it through without putting too much strain on the gears of my pasta machine. People have been asking me recently on my YouTube page what clays I use. So I use Primo mainly Primo, but I like Kato, Fimo, which is a little firmer to condition, a little harder on the hands, but a lot of people love Fimo. Some people love the Fimo soft. So Primo is my #1 go-to. Cernit I actually really like Cernit now. Kato, Pardo's nice, but it's a slightly different type of clay, made more out of beeswax, and Fimo soft. The only one I really do not like, and this is just my personal, is Sculpey 3. I don't like Sculpey 3. That's the first clay I started with making things for like mixed media projects, and everything I would literally take the pendant and just barely, and it would crack. And I was like, wow, I can't make, I was watching videos and they make bales, and I'm like, how do they make a bale strong enough to hold? And it was because Sculpey 3, I mean, yes, it can make, someone said, why don't you like Sculpey 3? It makes beautiful projects. It can. It works well for things like cabochons, like really thick chunks of things, stuff like that. But I don't even buy it anymore. It was at my local art store, so I bought a bunch of it thinking, okay, it's good. But it's just too brittle for me to put all the time in to have it break. So I just wanted to tell you that. So mainly I use Primo. So now that I got them squished out, I'm just going to keep running them through my pasta machine until they don't really crack like this anymore, and they're nice and pliable. And yeah. Okay, so they're all conditioned here. And right now they're all on setting 0. So they're all the same thickness on my Atlas. If I want less of a certain color, then I should make it thinner. I don't want tons of ecru, but I do want some. So maybe I'll put this down a little bit. Let's see. I don't know. Let me take it down to a 2 from a 0. Maybe I'll go down to a 3. Okay. Just a little less of that. Maybe I'll take this one down to a 2. I definitely want more white. I kind of like this color. It's not very much of it though. Let me stretch this out a little bit as well. Down to a 2. And really, I don't know how I'm going to stack them, so let's see. No, I kind of like, because if this bluish color mixes with this, I'll get a greenish tone, but they're all kind of earthy tones, which I kind of like. So I don't know, let's go with the smallest color and cut a rectangle out of it, and then we'll stack everything from that, because this is the least amount I have. So let's, pretty much we're just going to stack and layer. And Makume Gane is a very simple technique. It's one of the first I learned. I don't have a lot of basic videos on my YouTube because there are already a lot of good Skinner blend and good you know, jelly roll canes and bullseye canes, and you know, there's already a lot of good videos out there, so why remake them? How to condition, clays to use for certain things, you know. So if you're definitely a starter, go or YouTube some techniques. Just type in polymer clay and see what comes up. So I did the brown on top of below the blue, and then I'm gonna put the, sorry, my nose is running, I gotta pause this. I'm gonna put the little bit of ecru on, so I flipped it. I want the ecru on top of the blue, and then you're just pretty much cutting them all regular to size. And then I was going to put the white on top of the ecru. See? And then I was going to do the white. And you know what I might do with the white? Because I do want this to be, maybe I'll do another layer of white on the brown side, but a really thin layer. So far I have, this is 0. What is this? 3, 0, 2. So let me mix this back together. Sorry, everybody's, we got about another foot of snow today. My fiance's been plowing since 3 a.m. He just got home. So let me. So I just ran it through on a setting 2. And I just took it down to a 4. So it's quite thin compared to every other one. And I think it should be, yep, big enough. Okay. So there's just a little bit of white on either end. I don't want to get any colors in my white, so I might leave the white a little big. Okay. Like that. So first I'm going to do is pick up my white. So now we have a stack like this, okay? And this is a pretty thick stack. Now normally people would put it through a pasta machine, but right now it's quite thick, so I'm going to roll it by hand if I can find my roller. Let me wipe my roller off a little bit because I haven't used it in a while. I'm going to roll it by hand a little bit, stretch it out, thin it out. Now the more times you roll this through a pasta machine and cut and stack it, the thinner your waves are going to get. And it's okay if it's not perfectly rolling even. I don't really care about that. Some people want it to be a perfect rectangle, and but I don't strive for perfection in art. So I'm going to roll this through on setting 0. Just like that. And we'll cut in half. And you can, if you're not sure where half is, you can do this, you know, fold it over and then stick your blade in, make a mark, and then you're roughly at half, or you could measure it, and then we're going to stack it. And again, you could cut it each time you go through your pasta machine to square it up perfectly, but I don't care if the edges are a little different. And then Should I roll it through again? I don't want the layers to be too thin. So right now this is 2 of setting 0, so I'm going to just roll it by hand again a little bit so it's not straining my machine too much. I'm going to go through 0 again. Like that, and then we'll stack it one more time. So every time you're putting it through, hang on, let me just stack it so you can see each layer is going to get thinner and thinner and thinner, and your pattern will be finer and finer and finer. So you can really just go however many times you want. Am I okay with that? Let me cut off this little excess and we'll call that good. And it's okay that it's not matching there. Let me, hang on one second. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of get it all smushed together really well. Bring it into a slightly smaller block. And I'm doing this now, but you can also do it later. I'm just going to get them smushed together pretty good just by pushing it a little bit just to make it a little thicker. Like that. Okay, and then we begin putting designs in however you want. So I think I'm going to push more of the thick white through, which is this layer compared to that layer. This was the thin setting 4 white. This was a 0 white. So I think I'm going to push on that, the thicker side. And I'm going to keep this very, I'm going to use a ball tool. I think what I'm going to do, let me first push it through. So what's happening is as you're pushing down, all the layers are getting smushed. Okay? And then what I'm going to do, and I just want to see how much space I need to leave in between each circle. I want to take one of these micro cutters, slightly bigger than the circle, which this one should be, you know, enough room around it. I'm going to dip it in a little cornstarch. Just got a container here to maybe hopefully keep it from sticking. But if it sticks, we'll just push it out. And then I'm going to try to center that. Yep, seeing it came out in it. That's okay. Let's take my same circle. See if I can push it out. This isn't quite long enough. Okay, and then I'll just set it back in there. You know what I should do? Use this guy first and then do the circles after. Let's try that. So I'm going to go in a straight line. Ooh. Bunch of cornstarch. Let's see how this works. No, that didn't work as well. I have a little Kemper cutter. Now the Kemper cutters have plungers. Oh, I do have one that small. Let's try that. So Kemper cutters have plungers which help you push out. I'm just going to keep going with it. So I'm going to put all these dots all the way across, okay, in lines. Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of a pain in the butt to get out of the little cutter. See, even with the Kemper cutter, if you look down in there, the clay's sticking. So whatever. I'm just going to go with the circles. I wanted to keep this very simple, and I was going to do a circle with a circle around it, but today my clay is being sticky, so we'll use this part. And you're pushing all the way through. Now you don't need to. You can play around with it. Because if you push just like halfway through, when you're slicing through this, only part of the slices will have the pattern. Other slices won't have as much of it. This one I definitely wanted to keep it kind of simple, but I did want that around it, but it wasn't quite, I should probably fill this in, working as easily as I wanted it to. It's definitely sticking. But I feel like that's not enough, huh? Let me just put some, let's use this ruler because it's a little thicker. Put some straight lines down in between my rows. You could use your blade. This is a little thicker than my blade. Pick it up. Maybe I'll do some the other way. We'll see if this inspires me to do anything with color or anything. Okay, so now all we're going to do is begin squishing it back together. You can do makumegane with texture stamps, whatever you want. So now we just need to cut it to come into one big block. Sometimes you can take like a ruler or an acrylic block and push the sides like this. Oh, on camera that doesn't sound good. The screeching. You see how it dragged down the clay? So we need to get it thick enough that we can slice out of it. And so where we don't have holes, we want to fill all of those in. You see this side looks a little differently because that's the bottom. So we're just kind of reducing by kind of flipping and rotating. Get it all to come back together. Jackson, a wine butt. Oh. See how all the holes now are pretty much filled together? And it's a lot thicker. That will make it easier for us to slice. Okay, so then take the sharpest blade you have. And I have all kinds of, some are older blades and I use my really dull ones. I like using my dull ones. This is a newer one. You could use a Lucy clay slicer. This one gets hard when you're getting close to the table. This is the Kato one because these handles don't let the blade go flush against the table. So I don't use that one a lot. But I have this flexible, this is on my Amazon page too if you're wondering. And kind of stick it down to your board. And we're just going to begin slicing on the area you put your pattern on, okay? We're not slicing through the layers. You don't want to slice like this. You want to slice, have your pattern wherever you were punching holes through, that's this layer. We're going to start slicing that off, okay? So stick it down. Oh, life's horrible. And then I do want to try, now I gotta get a couple. I might stand it up for a little bit. I want to get it to stick down, but I have cornstarch on my table. Now you can gouge in to get different layers. Or you can try to do whole slices. Each time you do something, it'll be a little different. You know, if you gouge in, you're going to get different colors. It's not sticking to my table. And then one side's going to look different than the other side. Life is horrible. Oh, I'm so miserable. You know what it actually kind of looks like? The world map to me when you have those latitude and longitude. I don't know, like a globe. So then you just cut a bunch of these off. Pick out the ones you like. And then those we put together and we make a veneer. And even these half slices, you can put those together too. He's such a whine ass. That's a 65-pound pit bull for you. They're so mean, aren't they? Such mean dogs. Oh. He's such a whine ass. You can't hear him all the time, but he's doing it quietly too. Aww. Yeah. It's getting thin, so like the last little bit of it. Yeah. So I was gonna do the circle thing, but like I said, it was kind of being a pain in the butt. So then take your scraps. I'll probably take this one, probably this one. Okay, and then roll this out. And you don't need to mix it completely. You can if you want, but you don't need to. I'm probably going to need more than that to lay them onto. So I'll take this brown and this blue and this one because I got enough slices. So this is what I have for excess. It's not a lot, but enough to lay a few slices on. So I'm setting 4 right now, so it's pretty thin. But I mean, you can overlap them, you can lay them perfectly. Just pick an area you like. I like the ones, I like this one a lot. And I like this one. Okay. So let's see, what else do I like? That one there. Put that one there. I mean, most of this, other than white and the ecru, was scrap clay. So, you know, I don't really have anything in mind. I'm just trying to get feeling crafting back in. And I gotta do something to get that going. So I'm just laying some on the seams, next to the seams, wherever you want. Just lay on some stuff. You don't have to either. You can just leave it like that and burnish it really well. And you don't even need to use these right off. When you don't know what to do and you just want to do something, just make a veneer, make something simple, and then put it in a sheet protector, and you can keep them for a long time. I've had some that I kept and then months later used them. So then I'm going to run this through my pasta machine. Actually, I might add a little bit up here, because most of my cutters get taller in one spot. So if it was like a pendant, I could use. And then run it through. So that was on setting 0 from here to here. Now I'm going to flip it and go down a setting, the opposite direction. You can stretch this out kind of as much as you want. You can really just keep stretching it and stretching it. It's kind of neat, huh? This is where the first slice happened. The first like 2 slices. I like those too. I feel like I'd almost want to put something in here because it doesn't quite match right there. Simple veneer can be used for half a pendant pretty easily. So I'm not going to show you what I'm going to do with it, but I'll keep it for now. And what if we take one of these or a couple of these and make like a bead out of it? Or swirl it up. So let's take a couple of these that I'm not going to use. Just going to cut off the funky ends where the pattern's a little different. Let's just lay all that on there. As you know, that's the washer in the basement, but it's directly above me. Do I need any more? Right there. roll it in the hands just to smooth it all off. And if we get like an acrylic, an acrylic block, we can spiral this. And you can make veneers out of these too. I do that too. Where's my acrylic blocks? Down here. I put everything away recently. Okay. So it's down here. Pick a part you like. Let's try swirling that part. And then keep your acrylic block. Try to keep it flat. I'm not that great at keeping it flat. And just begins going in the same direction. If you start going clockwise, always go clockwise. If you go counterclockwise, go counterclockwise. So the bigger circle you get, or you go, the more narrow this guy's going to get. The shallower of a circle you do, the more squat and fat this guy's going to get. Mine always get oblong, but I plan on flattening it out anyways. So as you keep going, you'll see it'll start to swirl. You can swirl them a lot, you can swirl them a little bit, kind of whenever you want. Mine always get a little oblong, which is fine. You can always take it and make it a little round again. You can swirl it in multiple spots. It's because I push harder when I don't push evenly. That side looks pretty cool, huh? And flatten it out. And you can stretch that out too. Make a veneer out of that. I actually quite like this side. And that side. I actually like that a lot. Which I could do the same thing with this. Right? I actually will like the way that looks a lot. Pick parts of this that I don't like, and I could wrap this around a bead too. If we make a bigger one, I could have a bigger veneer because I can run that through my pasta machine. Or you could make a cabochon, form a cabochon, you know, just like form a cabochon by hand, or use a mold. A lot of people use molds. I don't really make a lot of cabochons because I like resin, and the few cabochons I made and just put like Renaissance wax on, when I sprayed it with my perfume, it like took the wax off, and it didn't hold a shine as nicely as it wanted, and I can never get them to resin as nicely. Round thing. Someone asked me to show them how to do a round thing, resin a round thing. I can never get them to resin really nicely, so that's why I don't tend to make them. That's just a personal thing. If you can get them to resin really nicely, then go for it. What's his name? Is it Polymer Clay Zoo? He can get them to resin. He can resin, though he doesn't have a video on it because he does it outside. I think that's him. But he can resin cabochons really, really nicely. Like, really nicely. His always come out super shiny. There's no little bubbles. Mine always get little bubbles on them. Like micro bubbles in the resin. Even if I torch it or use a heat gun to try to get the bubbles to pop, or a straw or anything, it doesn't work for me. But I also haven't played with it tons. I would have to take more time to really sit down and try to figure out a way for it to come out well. I just haven't. I just make flat pendants. See? So just playing, I've already gotten something that I'm like, wow, I actually kind of like the way that looks. And it's kind of getting my ideas flowing again. So this is what I do when I'm in writer's block. I call it crafter's block. So you're just going in circles. Swirl it as much as your heart wants. You might not always go ovally, always. Nope, flipped it upside down. This is the side I was working on, I think. Let's see. If you go in the wrong direction, you'll just unswirl your swirl, which I've definitely done, but that's okay. And it's still swirling, even though I always make an oblong shape. It's still swirling, so that's all that matters to me. And they do make lentil bead things with like a circle on it. And you're supposed to keep the point in the circle. Actually, is it swirled enough for me? Let's flatten it. It's kind of cool. Almost looks like a peacock feather right there. So then what I would do, as you've seen in other videos, is roll this out and use this as a backing or as a 1/2 of my pendant, which I actually really like this. You could just make a full pendant out of this. You could have formed that into a cabochon, like I said. And I kind of like how when I'm stretching it out, it's all getting thinner. I like doing this with translucent canes, laying translucent on top. Hang on, let me grab some old canes that I have, because I really think that would look cool with some old canes. Hang on. Okay, so I have another ball of just scrap gray. And then I have these old leaf canes, right, that I haven't used in a long time because I'm out of the flower mode because it's snowy out. I'm going to do the same thing because I have all of this left, but I'm going to lay some canes, these translucent canes on top of it, because I think it will look cool. And just see what I come up with. I love translucent canes and layering them. I really, really do. This is actually giving me ideas of different things I want to do. So that's why I do this. A simple technique will get you inspired. You know, and people ask me all the time, can you use this material instead of the one you use? Yes. My way is not the only way you can do things. So if you have a different material at home, like when I'm painting on clay or using inks, like, and you think, oh, I can, instead of stamping with inks, I can stamp with a, go for it. You know, do whatever you want to do. Okay, so I got that one wrapped, and then I'm going to just lay on some of these leaf canes because they actually look cool when they're really stretched out and they're basically translucent leaves. This is a video that my nose was stuffy and I sniffled when I made that video. I sniffled 10 times, no, 8 times within 10 minutes, and I had a lady the other day write me a nasty message that I should not record videos if I went 8 times in 10 minutes. Okay, so maybe every minute and a half it went. And she's like, you shouldn't record it if you're going to have a runny nose. And I was like, well, I'm human. So, and if I'm going to make, like I was in the midst of making these canes and I was recording it and I needed these canes. If I have a stuffy nose or I'm sick and I'm making something, I'm just going to make it. I do not record videos just to record videos to show you. I record what I'm making, so then you would have just not ever seen these leaves. That's what it would have been. No one would have, I would have not done a second video, because I still have tons of this leaf cane. I have 3 different sizes still in my drawer. I probably have, you know, a good foot of these 3 leaves, so I don't need to remake them again for a long time. So you would have just never seen the video. So I'm not holding a gun to anybody's head. If you don't like when my dogs are in the background or my washer's going or my nose is running, then just don't watch. There's no need to write a nasty comment. Excuse me for being human. So I'm not even these little pieces, that's fine with me. I'm not like cutting these perfectly. Some are going to be thicker, some are going to be thinner. They just look cool when they stretch out, which is the only reason why I'm putting these on here. Randomly throughout. Because when it goes translucent, all I'll have are black spots with white surrounding it. On this one, I'll have like a black line, couple black and white lines, like, so it's not anything, it's not going to look like a leaf once I'm done swirling it. The dogs are playing. My goofies. And just roll it up until it's all smooth. Now I have not been messing with this clay, so the cane clay is really stiff, so it's going to take a second to get it warmed up and moving. But I'm going to warm it up in my hand like this before I start swirling it. Just like a ball. And then pick apart. Right there, let's try swirling that. I do better when I go slower. You can see it start to swirl that tip of that leaf. You see it start to pull it. And it does move around your counter. Like you'll start here and then you'll be way up there, but I usually have to move it, bring it back to myself. The other swirling in the middle there. So is that side. And remember, that's translucent, so when that goes see-through, you'll see the background. And what I like doing with these is rolling it back into like a circle and swirling a different part. Now it's weird because it's not a perfect circle, so it's going to take a second to get it going. And same thing, just swirl. And there are people out there that can make beautiful lentil beads. Like, they're way more precise about it than I am. Okay. Looks cool. I think that looks too like a, it's too like a leaf, so let me swirl that up over there. Just distort things a little bit. I don't want pure leaves on here. But I like that. And then pick a spot, flatten it out. I like that the translucent is stiff, so it's crackling, which will look cool when it's baked. Even though I'm going to flatten it so it won't be an actual crackle. There'll just be areas where the translucent is not. Now with this type of thing, after you bake it, if you sand it too much, you can sand your leaves right off completely. And I didn't give those canes time, like I didn't put them in my pocket or anything, give them time to warm up. I made those in like July, and it's almost the end of January right now. Yeah, because once this bakes, all of that will go see-through, and all you'll see is this black and white. I like these for backings. I use these for backings all the time, stuff like this. Just because I think it's different. Let me roll this one out. Just a little. So that was on a 0. It didn't stretch it too much. And let me put this one through. And this one's quite small. Boys. So yeah. I might actually cut a pendant out of that. It'd be very basic, but that would work fine. This one I almost feel like I just have to bake it just to show you. Hang on. So I have a bowl here of just like junk canes or junk things. This was like a makume gane I made a long time ago. This is one I resined, but do you see how there's like these micro little bubbles on it? That's just like a cabochon. These are all trial ones. I mean, this actual one's not bad. I could finish that one. But where are the old ones? That's the same kind of thing. I think I actually laid leaves on here and swirled them. Same thing. This was another translucent cane that I just swirled up and cut a little shape out of. Here's one where you stretch it out, so you know it'll become see-through and you'll still be able to see underneath. You're just going to see the black and white lines. So depending how much you distort them, you know, this was one that I just took some scraps, same as this one here. So just play. Sometimes you just got to play to try to get your inspiration flowing. Here's one that I just took some scraps. So that's all I was doing in this, okay? It wasn't actually a project. As you know, a lot of people will be like, well, this is stupid to watch. But, hey, hopefully that will inspire me to do something. Sorry, I'm going to pause. I think what I might do is I might make a pendant out of this one, but it's quite small. So I'm going to back it with this one. Just pick an area I like, and then I'll roll it out on the pasta machine a little thinner because my pendants aren't usually that thick. Maybe I'll use this part. I kind of like this part crackled and it's all weird and funky. So let's do that maybe. Let's put this guy something like this because I'm going to stretch him out. Let's lay him on there like that. Run this through my pasta machine on 0. And then I think I'm going to run it through on 1 from this direction to that direction. Sorry, my dog is such a vocal player. So the front side will be this. The back side will be this. So let me get a cutter. Shape I want to do. Now I just got these the other day, but they're so small. I wish it was bigger size. It's a cool shape, but it's kind of tiny. These would actually be a good size for like little earrings, you know. kind of like this part, but then I kind of like that part too. Yeah, just like a simple oval. Most of my cutters I get from Metal Clay Studio. Let's see, that's too long. Just going through my cutters and seeing. Different shapes and different sizes. I feel like it's got to be more fat. Would that one work? Let's see. That one's big, but this is a good size. I don't want the swirl centered. That's what I'm thinking. I don't want the swirl centered. I think I want to have it kind of off-centered. Like that. This kind of reminds me of a sweat. I really like how that's kind of see-through-ish right there. Oh, I gotta think about this. Let me figure this out. Hang on. Okay, I think I'm gonna do that. So let me first put this on my tile. I don't like to transfer it, so I like to lay it on my tile. Make sure it's flat down on your tile. Some people bake it on paper. I don't. I don't mind a shiny back. I think I was gonna cut there. Now you could hang this pendant up from there, like that, or you could hang it. Usually I drill a hole up here, but I'm thinking on this one I might drill a hole that way. Yeah, I want more of this. I like this right here. Now I don't tend, some people put saran wrap. They would lay saran wrap right on your clay and then push in, and that will cause your clay to dome a little bit. Now I don't tend to do that because I want it flat so I can resin it. Okay, so there's that one. And I also have this piece here, which both sides look pretty cool actually. I like both sides. Let me lay this one on my tile. And I was thinking for this one, I would use this cutter. These are from Metal Clay Studio on Etsy. And what's nice about them is they usually have packs, but if you tell them, hey, can I get 3 different sizes? I usually ask them for, what sizes? 1.5 to 2.5 inches. And they give me those 3 and those sizes, because I don't need a 1/2 inch. I don't make earrings. I can't have really big earrings at work. So, you know, you can really have them make, they're so nice about it, they'll make whatever size you want. And their cutters are really nice. They don't come with, like someone said that you could get scrap hairs peeling off. They never have that. That looks cool. I like that. I like that. I still have these 2 little pieces right here that I could make one more. Let me keep that. I think I'm going to make one more, and then I'll bake them. $2.75 for an hour. Sand and buff and resin. And then I came up with something today that I don't think actually looks too bad to me. I feel an air bubble right there. Can't tell if it's underneath or in the clay. I don't usually like to pick them up because then it distorts the shape a little bit, but you see that right there? That's in the clay actually. And if you get an air bubble like that inside your clay, it will show up after you bake it. So I have a little needle here. I'm gonna pop it. Push the air out. Try to smooth that back off. Or you can do this. You can slice out your air bubble like that and then smooth it off. But even if I'm smearing the outside, once I sand that a little bit, it'll be fine, because it'll take off that smeared top layer. I'm gonna make another one, might as well with what I have here. Just the same way I did the other ones, and probably a different shape, and I'll be right back and I'll show you it. And there is that last one. So 3 very simple pendants made out of a makumegane and then swirled into a lentil bead because I wasn't thrilled with the veneer. So that kind of actually really this one I really like here. That one looks super cool. I actually like them all. I really like this area right here on this one. Yeah, so that's my way of getting my creativity flowing again. So I'll bake these because it's Primo, 275. I always bake for a full hour. I don't think 30 minutes is quite enough. You definitely want your polymer clay to be nice and bendy when it's baked properly, because if it's overly rigid, then it'll snap. So, you know, when it's bendy, it's baked properly. So I definitely always bake for an hour. Better longer than shorter. And I will lay a piece of, like, I don't have a piece of paper right here, but say I have a piece of paper I would let upstairs. I'll take a piece of printing paper. I used non-wax parchment and just literally lay it on top of these so they don't scorch the top. So they're out of the oven, and I'm actually quite happy with them. I think they're really cute. Super simple, nice and pale. They're still really warm, so I'm not sanding them right now. All the scraps that I had left, I mixed up, and I got this pretty gray color. So, you know, I'm going to save that for a different project later in my scrap bin. I'm going to let these cool, and then I'm going to begin sanding them. I'll show you the sander I'm going to use because I really like it now that I have it. But you can totally sand it however you normally do, by hand. Did that for a long time. That works perfect. Okay, here we go. They should be cool enough to sand now. Now, again, for a long time I sanded by hand, and you totally can do it by hand. But a couple months ago when I was making those bowls, I wanted to try to find a small sander that I could do. And I found this. It's a skill sander. It has a nice filter on it. It's, I think, loop and hook closure, or Velcro. And I have these sanding pads. I did have to buy a separate set of sanding pads because the few that came with it were too coarse. But they're on my Amazon page if you're interested. Otherwise, just sand by hand. So usually by hand, I start 400, 600, 800, 1,000. And depending on how you're going to finish this will depend how high you go up. Because I use resin, and after I sand, I'm going to use my Dremel to buff. 1,000 is probably enough for me. And I am going to use, because the pads I have here are getting pretty fine. And I can change these, but I'm going to use them until they're done, pretty much. Until I can't use them no more. I'm going to use this 320 grit one first. Because I've used it before, and this area is finer than over here. So pretty much, whether you're doing it... and I don't have a 600 grit, so I'm going to use regular wet dry sandpaper. So let me just show you how I would do one of them. So this you just stick on with Velcro, and I'm going to get it wet, and I have a bowl of water sitting off to the side, a bowl that I use just for sanding, and just a junk towel to wipe it off with. And so, Jackson. So I'm going to quiet this when I'm editing the video, so it shouldn't be that loud, but it is kind of loud, you know, I mean, but it's not too bad. just go up through your grits pretty much. You know, and because this veneer is very thin, it's going to come off, some of this brown's coming off, but that's okay, because I'll get a different color underneath it. Just makes it a lot faster for me. But then I have to do this one. So this is how I would sand regularly. This is the 600 that I don't have a grip for, but just wet your sandpaper and go for it. If you're gonna sand dry, you want to wear a mask. Polymer clay is not something you should be breathing in, or the dust of the clay. The polymers and the elastomers and everything else in it is not very healthy for you to breathe in over and over. I mean, I'm sure one time you probably wouldn't die from it, but it's all the times, over and over. So pretty much just go through and sand until you're happy with the smoothness, and over time you'll learn how fine you need to go. If you're not going to resin, honestly, if I didn't resin and I didn't have a Dremel, I have sandpaper that goes all the way up to 10,000, and that's what I would do if I wasn't going to resin and I wasn't going to use my Dremel to buff it. I would go all the way up to 10,000 to try to get a sheen on it. Say you're gonna see, I sand and buff even though I'm gonna use resin. Some people say you don't need to, but I find if it looks better before the resin's like a magnifying glass, it's gonna look better after the resin. That said, you don't need to get rid of every tiny little bump or lump or indent. You know what? I was just watching a show the other day and it drives me insane, but I hear it all the time. When I think of an indent, right? And so I was watching Botched, and people, after they have surgery, they get these weird indents on the body. I would say indentation. There's an indentation there. People say indention. I have an indention. My stomach there's an indention. I would say indentation. I don't know. I don't know the right way to say it. I really don't. Should you say indent? Like, there's an indent in my stomach. There's an indentation. There's an indention. Indention, they say. I don't know. I'd never heard someone say indention. So anyways, this is how I would do it by hand. And so I'm going to finish sanding and buffing until sanding. I'll show you how I'll buff again. And then, yeah. And then I'll resin and we'll go from there. I like a UV resin. Some people like the 2-part resin. Either or is fine. I like the UV just because it sets quicker. Even if I covered it, say with a box or something in my basement, it's a basement, it's an unfinished basement. I have 2 70-pound pit bulls. A piece of dust or hair would probably end up in it. So I like the UV resin because I can set it right off. I do both sides. This one too. Okay, I'm gonna finish this up. I think you've seen enough to know what I'm doing. And when I'm done with that, I'll show you how I will buff. A lot of you already know how I buff, but I'll show you. And then I'll UV resin them, and then we'll put a hole and drill in a bale. Okay, so now I'm ready to buff them all. They're all sanded. So let me show you what I've done off camera. So this one is just sanded, okay? I started to buff the top, that's why I'm covering it. Just sanded, because I figured I should do the... This one, sanded. Now this one is buffed with my orange wheel, okay? This one is buffed with the orange wheel, which I'll show you in a second, my orange wheel. Okay, sanded, buffed with the orange wheel. Definitely more of a sheen. And I only sanded up to 1,000, so the higher you go, the more of a glassy sheen you'll get. Now this one is sanded and buffed. So sanded, orange wheel. This one is sanded, orange wheel, and then the white wheel. Can you see the difference in the sheens? That's why I like both the orange and the white wheel. They come in a set together. They're on my Amazon Ambassador page. I just find I get a better shine than just the orange wheel alone. The orange is more coarser. And then obviously sanding, there's like nothing, no shine. Okay, so let me show you on this one what we're going to do. I have to use the white on this one still, so I need to remember to do that. So I'm going to bring you over my lap just because it's easier for me to do it over my lap with my Dremel. So this is my Dremel 4000. What I like about this one is the lock button here. Some of them are really high up, the button to stop it mid-turn while it's going. And if you want to choke up, you hit that button accidentally. This one, I don't ever hit it. So this one has speeds from like 0 to 35. I generally use it between a 15 and a 20. When I first started, I did slower speeds. Okay, so to put the bit in, and I'm going to start with my orange one first, you hold your lock button down, slide it down in, and you're going to twist to tighten. Okay, let your lock button go and give it a good pull and make sure it's on there. Okay, obviously this is your on and off. To take your bit off, put your lock button down and untwist it, and it will come out. Okay, so I'm holding the lock button down the entire time. Now the first thing I do, I don't sand these sides. Do you see how there's like jaggedy sides? I use my orange for that. Now, when you're buffing to get a shine, you're not putting pressure. You're just gently gliding this over it. You're not like into it. You're just gliding it. When you want to trim, if you want to trim something, you can by putting more pressure. You can with these wheels by going either faster or putting pressure. So when you're trying to get a shine, you don't want to put a lot of pressure. Okay, like no pressure, just the weight of the machine. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to trim up these jaggedy edges by putting a little bit pressure, choking up on it, and pulling towards my thumb, okay? So choking up on it and pulling towards my thumb, and it's going to get rid of all these scraggly edges now, okay? That's how I trim the edges. It's just faster than sanding them. And I always go towards the point. I don't start at the point. I started like down here as you saw. And I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to come up around. Because sometimes you'll catch the point. And then I'm going to come off the point like this. Whoop, off. I'm going to flip it and come off of this side off the point too. Because if you're starting up here, sometimes your wheel will catch and go that way. And then you'll trim off your point. I do want to round it just a hair, because it is a little pointy. And then to buff, very gentle pressure. I use little circles. You can go straight, I mean, whatever you want to do. And again, I didn't sand really highly. Okay, so you got to finish the whole thing with this. And I already did that on this one here. And then all I'm going to do is hold the lock, unlock it, and same exact thing on the one I've already finished with the orange one with the white. And you'll get even a higher shine. And again, very little pressure because you're not trying to sand away with it. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing these with this, and when I'm done, I'll be back. So at this point, everyone is sanded and buffed and ready to be resined. What I think I'm going to do is make an updated resining video, so that way it's separate. I know I've just recently talked in a video about the resins I've used, and why I like each one, but I think I'm going to make a separate resining video and do one of these on that video. And then once that's done, I'll come back and I'll show you how to drill a hole, but most of you know how to do that anyways. So I think this was good. This was a good way to get me going again. And I think, you know, they came out pretty cute, actually. I really like them. This one I still don't know which side I like best. Could resin both sides if I want. These ones, the backs are quite ugly, but they were fun to do, so not that you'll see the backs anyways. You could back them, but I don't care. People ask about the thickness. I don't like to go much thicker than setting 0 on my pasta machine, maybe a 1 or 2, but I don't like, or much thinner than that. I like to stay at around a 0. You can make them thicker, and depending if I add a backing, you know, or how many layers I have. If I add a backing, they tend to get thicker, but generally this is about the thickness I do. But that's, again, personal preference, and the more you do, the more you'll find out what you like and how thick you like to make them. Okay. Hey, so I'm back, and it's the next night. I had to, I decided to update my resin video, just to show you the ones I've tried and the ones I prefer, and a quick talk about that. I didn't say in that video, all of those resins that I use cure hard for me. I've never had one of them tacky. The Decor ROM, I know, is a cheap one. It's on my Amazon Ambassador. I've ordered 2 separate bottles of this, and it cures hard for me every time. This other one that's like the Decor ROM cures hard for me every time. I've had 2 bottles of this. The Lisa Pavelka, I've only had that 1 bottle. It's one of my least favorites, just because I don't really like the consistency of it. It's a little too thick for my preference, but sometimes you want it thick to be able to dome it, like on those glitter pieces where I had like a whole bunch of glitter mounded up, and I didn't want it rolling off of that. That Lisa Pavelka worked really well for that. The RJ Crafts I've used, oops, there goes my ginger ale. The RJ Crafts, I have 2 bottles of this too. I like this a lot. With this one, it cures hard for me, and it says 30 minutes. I usually leave it in for a full hour. But when it's done, and I just got resin on my hands, when it's done, you'll rub your finger along it, and it'll streak really big, and it gets this weird tacky feel. So I have to rub this one with alcohol when it's done. Not 99% alcohol, because I find it actually will take a lot of the shine off. Not all of it, but it makes it look duller. So I use the regular rubbing alcohol, like that you would put on your body type thing at the store, just to take this weird tacky film. That's what I get from it. So these are just my personal experiences. I'm not an expert on resin, but I figured, hey, I'd update my video. So these are the 3 pendants. This one I resined in that video. These are the other 2. I didn't resin them. I think this is my favorite one, but I do like these 2, but I don't need 3 of the same style. So these I tend to keep in a box. I have a big box that I keep my other pendants on, and then if I need a gift or someone likes it, then I can use one of those. So the last final part we have to do is drill the hole, put the jump ring and the bail on. Now, someone the other day on my site posted something like, oh, I got to get better at centering my hole. If you're having trouble finding the center with your drill, use a permanent marker. And with a permanent marker, you can really sit here and you can put a dot and go, okay, that looks pretty centered. And it's on the resin, so you can just take some alcohol after and wipe that off. Now, I use a good clay, plus it's resined, so I feel comfortable going closer to the edges. Some people will drill the hole further down because they're afraid their piece will crack. And I mean, sometimes they do crack. Rarely they do, but they do. So go with your comfort level on how far away from the edge you're going to put your hole. This is a shape that, unless you're doing this side and hanging it that way, this is a shape that it's hard to get a lot of space unless you're putting it way down here. You know, whereas this one, if you put it right on the edge here, I'm not going to dot it because there's no resin on it, you know, you have all this clay around it. Let's see, so this one here, same thing, you'd put it and you'd have more on either side than you would this one. So it just depends on your cut shape. But I try to keep it as close to the edge as I possibly can. And again, I've messed a whole bunch up when I was first starting to see how close to the edge I could get. I just don't like a huge jump ring. That's my personal preference. But again, my way is not the highway. Like, it's all about your personal preference. So this is the pin drill I have. It's a quite a cheap one. I've had it for over a year now. Got it on Amazon. It's on my Amazon Ambassador page. It's pretty simple. It comes with multiple size bits. I don't tend to use the really big ones unless I'm making like a pen. Like this winter I made ornaments. I use the bigger ones, but generally I tend to do fairly small ones. How wide, you know, how fat it's going to be, this to this, is going to depend on the gauge of your jump ring. So how thick this wire is around, okay, will depend how thick of a hole you need to make. And how, it's hard to explain, but how big of a jump ring, like this is a 6mm, I have 7mm, 8mm, and 10mm, will depend how thick your pendant is, if it can fit through. Because as the little, if your jump ring's open like this, as you come through, sometimes you'll catch the clay if the loop isn't big enough. So again, if you're starting to push it through and you're catching your clay, which I know I've showed before, then you're going to need a bigger jump ring. And it's really hard to explain, but you'll see it when it happens. So with this one, it has a rotating bottom. That way you can just stick it in your hand and twist your fingers, okay? This is so easy to hand drill polymer clay and resin that I don't like to use my Dremel. You can use a Dremel, but with a Dremel, it's going to be rotating. So you're going to go, you know, if you're not careful, you could be like, and gouge your whole piece. You know what I mean? Plus, it's moving at a faster pace, so I would say cracking is at a higher risk. With this, you're going hand speed, you're really controlling it, okay? And it takes 2 freaking seconds. So with this one, you turn this part, and this opens and closes a chuck. Now I'm going to use my smallest bit first because I find there's less risk of cracking if you start at your smallest and work your way up. Okay, slide it in and then tighten it all the way up. Okay, normally I leave this face down. I don't generally pick this up, but it's easier for me to show you. I'm going to put it on my hole and I'm literally just going to start twisting. Now if I was drilling like 5 or 6 pendants at once, I would do each one with this small one. I would do this one, the next pendant, the next pendant, and then I would change to the next size up. Do them all in the next size up drill bit. And then I would change and go to the next size up and then do them all in that. I don't do one to the end and then move. So we're almost through. You can kind of see it starting to come through right there. I mean, what'd that take? 5 seconds? And then go through from the other side because you'll get this little, can you see how you can't see a perfect hole? Go through from the other side. Someone just asked me about this bowing, if you can put it in the oven a little bit to get that bowing away. They heard you could. If you want to, go ahead. Some resins will yellow a lot if they're put back in heat. So I do not mind this tiny little bit of bowing. These are for personal use. I only wear them. I'm not selling them. If I was going to sell these in like mass quantities, I'd probably use the RJ Crafts. Not that it gets a nicer finish at all, but because it does cure flat. I've sold a bunch of these. Well, not a bunch. Maybe like 20 pendants at $35 a piece. And not one person that's bought it goes, why is it slightly bent like that? Not one person has asked me that. And they don't notice it. You guys do because I pointed out, but they do not notice that. So I just want to say that. Now, that does not bother me that this tip, literally this tip goes up. Let me get a flat surface. Hang on. When I'm talking, it's bowing that much. I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, it's like 2 millimeters off of the thing. On both sides. It's really not a lot. And on my clothing, like when I'm wearing this on like a shirt, you won't notice it. No one notices it. For how cheap the resin is, I pay like $15 for that resin. $15. It takes 30 minutes to cure. If you want a resin that doesn't distort, okay, you have a longer curing resin. 30 minutes to an hour, I would say. This says 2 to 4. If it says 30 minutes, I cure it for an hour. But the other resin, the RJ Crafts one's like $60 or something, you know, from 50. So really it's just your personal preference. If you really hate the bowing, get a more expensive resin. I guess that's all I can say. I guess I should have said more in that resining video, but I didn't really think about it until people started asking more questions. I'm just showing you what I don't mind it. I really, really don't. I don't see it when I'm wearing it during the day. I see it when I first make it. I don't see it after that. So I'm just jumping up a couple sizes, going through my sizes, and slowly drilling my hole out. Once you get the first hole, it's even easier. Oop, it's not tight enough. So go through from one side, flip it, go through from the other side until you think you have a big enough hole to fit your jump ring in. I think I might have to go up one more size. Sorry, doggy's coming down. I think that was almost the same size. Okay, let's see if that's big enough there. So I have a 6 millimeter jump ring out, and I'm hoping that will fit. These are my Beat-A-Lon bent nose pliers. I really like them. I actually liked the size of them so much that I ordered a second pair on Amazon. These are like $8. I got the first pair at Michael's. I have a bunch of other pliers, but some of them are really wide to grip and they're a lot thicker. These they spring back nicely. I don't have to put a lot of pressure. Some I have to I push them together and then I have to actually pull them apart to get them to go back out. So I don't know. I just like these ones. But again, use what you have. You can use straight nose pliers. When you're opening a jump ring, you're not pulling it side to side. You're opening it front to back. So you would think you want to grab them like this. Now that will cause more distortion when you grab it like this. You want to try to hold your jump ring with the most of your plier as possible, kind of like this. And I learned that from doing some chainmail videos on YouTube. You want to hold it like that. The opening, sorry, my dog's chewing his bone, his elk antler. So you want to hold it, the opening's at the top. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to twist one frontward towards the front and one towards the back. Ready? One towards the front, one towards the back. Okay, I'm not pulling apart. See? One towards the front, one towards the back. That's the ideal way to open a jump ring. I'm going to slide my pendant on. And now what you'll see is sometimes if your pendant's too thick, you'll catch right there at the tip. You'll catch, it won't come through. Your circle will start to catch in the middle there. That means you need to go up the jump ring size to a different millimeter. This one actually went through nicely, which I thought it would. This is about setting 0 on my clay machine. So this 6 millimeter fit fine. I'm just going to use this simple little silver bail. I wear silver a lot, so most of my bails I got off either Amazon or Etsy. And then again, twist front to back to close. And you do want to go past it a little bit and then back. So sometimes one's up a little higher than the other. This one's pretty good, but then I'll give it a little pinch down to see if I can level it off a little more. Because manufacturing it, they can't make it exactly perfect. Good. Just like that. And we drilled out that permanent marker. I mean, yes, it has a bunch of fingerprints on it right now, so let me just try to wipe that off. Just like that. So there's a simple, easy pendant. Because I haven't clayed in like 2 months, that got my mind going. Okay, let me put on a chain quickly and I'll show it to you finished. Oh, hang on, I can't pause. And here is our finished piece. I generally just wear it on a simple leather cord, pre-made cord. That again, I buy off of Amazon. And you could put them on a chain if you like, a silver chain, because you had silver bail. You could put it, I also use from Fire Mountain Gems online. That's the name of the company. I buy rubber cords, pre-made rubber cords. Those are actually pretty cool in the way they work. So if you're interested in those, just check out Fire Mountain Gems. They're like silicone rubber. But you can wear it on whatever you want. And you know, I tend to get bales, this is one of the smallest bales I have, but I tend to get bales big enough to fit over any kind of end. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And hopefully I'll have something new coming. I have kind of an idea to use some different kind of crystals. Here, I got some different ones that I kind of have an idea, but I'm waiting for a couple more to come. So I have some ideas coming up. I also, with that pendant I made with the plaid and the gold, with the glitter, the gold glitter was upstairs in the bathroom the other day, and it was just really reflecting to me. So I think I'm going to try to make one. I got some silver glitter, the shards, and I have different silver glitters. I might actually just make a full pendant out of a reflective silvery one. It might be nice for, like, you know, I don't know, just something kind of shimmery and shiny. So I have some ideas coming, so we'll work it out. Anyways, I think that's it. If you like it, please share, comment, ask any questions. Join my Facebook page. It's Katie's, Katie''S, Polymer Clay Friends on Facebook. The link will be down below. The link to my Amazon page will be down below. Other than that, I'll see you next time when I have something to do.